Hi, this is our inaugural Candid Conversations with the National Women's Political Caucus. I'm Deidre Malone, the current president of the caucus, and happy National Women's History Month. I'm so excited that on this very first show, I have the president of the National Women's Political Caucus of Tennessee, Dr. Jennifer Watson, who is my first guest. She's also the CEO and co-founder of Limulus LLC, a research-based biotechnology company. Jennifer, welcome to Candid Conversations.
Wonderful to see you, Deidre. Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to chat.
Well, I am so glad that I think I was sharing with you before we started that you're my first guest because I've known Jennifer for years. She is such a fighter for women's rights. And so we've worked together in the state of Tennessee. And so, Jennifer, tell me what made you want to be involved in the National Women's Political Caucus?
Yeah, sure. So it's an interesting story. So, I was a lot like, I think a lot of women in 2016 that I realized I needed to be more politically engaged. I gave birth in 2016 too. So, I got my little guy, his name's Finney. I got him off and running. And in 2019, I was like, I have the space now to be able to figure out where I plug in. And so I took Emerge Tennessee.
Oh, yes.
And met, well, now Councilwoman Zulfat Suara, who is the treasurer of the National Women's Political Caucus. And we were kind of reamping our Tennessee chapter. And she was like, come to the meeting, and that's where it all got started, really.
Well, let me just say, it's funny how I'm so glad there's some synergy with women's organizations because I'm a founding board member of Emerge Tennessee. So got involved with Brenda Gadd and Crystal Knight was our first executive director. I mean, it was just a great group. And then the only reason I kind of stepped away from that board was because I became president of the Tennessee National Women's Political Caucus. And I have to say, when I became president, we became back associated with our national organization. So I'm really proud about that. Now, Jennifer, talk to me about what NWPC Tennessee has going on right now.
Yeah, so we have, 2024. So a lot of organizations have a lot of things going on. I would say our biggest directive right now is on March 18th, we're hosting a Women's Day on the Hill. We plan to have, just programming around political education and really community building, because I think one of the issues with a lot of people may not know this, but women's representation in the Tennessee General Assembly, we are 49th in the nation. We are our House has 10% women in it. I mean, it is stark. And I think that we've kind of created a system here that doesn't allow women to plug in just because it is just so male dominated.
Yes.
And so when we designed Women's Days and so from my background, I run a biotech.
Yes.
Political spaces were new to me before I even I voted, but it's I didn't really understand campaign basics, anything like that. And so really when we started Women's Day on the Hill last year, which we received a grant from the National Women's Political Caucus Foundation, and that's really what gave us the money to get it started and get it going. And, we really designed it to allow women to engage. And one of the things that I absolutely love about it, especially now that we're on the second year, it's we have, I need to count this, but I know of at least 5 women that came to Women's Day on the Hill last year that are running for office this year.
Oh, that's amazing.
And it's great. Megan Lange is a really good friend of mine, and she Women's Day on the Hill was kind of her first thing too. And now she's the campaign manager for Allie Phillips. She's just out there doing the good work.
Yes. Well, let me just say, it was such a good event. It was so well organized. Thank you so much for organizing it last year. And I was really happy I was able to come up and participate and sit in on some of the sessions. We had Leader Camper there. We had Civil Watkins was there. She's school board member out of Fayette County, if I'm not mistaken. Of course, we had our very own Ruby Powell Dennis, who's just a rock star in her own right, who also serves as the vice president of membership for the national board of the National Women's Political Caucus. But I mean, it was such a moving event. And I'm so glad that you are doing it again here in Tennessee this year.
Well, and that's the thing too. I need to give some flowers out because Ruby Powell Dennis helped organize that so she's the founder and executive director of Elect Black Women PAC, of course, a member of the national board and a member of our state board. And Joanna Thaling from the Women's Fund of Greater Chattanooga. She did all of the advocacy development. I mean, we really just have a lot of phenomenal women in the state of Tennessee that do good work. And when we all come together, I mean, that's why I love the Women's Political Caucus. It's multi-partisan. You for women, we're for you, and I think
Absolutely.
that's what that event helped demonstrate that, I think.
Well, and if you look at some of our past presidents for Tennessee, Gloria Johnson has gone on and done incredible work in the Tennessee State House. When we think about now, Zelfad, who was a treasurer here, locally, and then when I joined the national board and I knew we were looking for a treasurer, I immediately said Zelfad would be excellent, and she has been. But now she's a rock star in Nashville and Davidson County, so being involved in our caucus, I think that's something to kind of motivate women, Jennifer, to get involved, because if we sit back and just let things happen, then it'll just, be devastating for women, not only in our state, but in our country. Right. So what do you hope to, as the new president of the National Women's Political Caucus for Tennessee, what do you hope will happen with your organization here at the state level?
So I would say probably I have a big goal this year, and that's to gain 10 seats for women throughout the statewide, gain 10 seats, because then at that point, and the sad thing is like right now it's like 15.2% women. If we gain 10 seats, it's 22%. Like, this isn't like everyone's like, wow, 10 seats. And it's like, but we're still just barely notching that needle into where we're like, we have women's equity, or at least equal women representation. So I would say this year, one of our main goals is we have a voter registration outreach that's specifically women oriented. So for the women, we have a great list of women there are 12 women that have applied for endorsement so far for the state level. And they're more coming out of more are announcing every day, so it's like, so my goal as an organization, in summary, I guess, is that I want to engage more women in Tennessee just because that is such a problem. So we're doing a voter registration outreach, and then we're also going to do kind of canvassing and community building events with all of our endorsed women, because I think Tennessee is a unique state in that, you're from Memphis, which is blue. I'm from Nashville, which is blue. But it's the rural areas we need to focus on. And I think that is the value of a statewide organization, is because a lot of times people don't even know women are running in these rural districts. But with the power of Memphis and the power of Nashville and the power of Knoxville and Chattanooga now that's turning purple, that we can kind of redistribute funds for fundraising for these women, and also just make it more equitable in terms of urban and rural divide for,
Well, that's the reason having a national organization that can assist with training and whenever you need support, to even, guide through an endorsement process, but we already have it down in Tennessee. You've done an excellent job with that. But, and creating those different caucuses, because I think sometimes we forget about how important that local and state level is, Jennifer. And it's so important because it all bubbles up. We train at that local and state level. Those are the women that eventually will decide, okay, maybe I should run for Congress, right? Maybe I should run for the Senate, US
Yep.
Senate. And so having that local caucus where people are engaged and feel empowered, and then being active at the state level makes, I think, all the difference in the world. We have to figure out how we can get women to see the value in serving.
Right. Agreed. And that's the thing too that I think the local caucuses play an important role in, just because again, like in our cities, I think we get so caught up in our cities. But it's like I went to a training that Williamson County Dems were doing just south of Davidson, that they are doing some amazing trainings out there too. And I think that the value is the middle. I'm currently the president of the Middle Tennessee Caucus. That we have 30 counties in Middle Tennessee.
Yes.
And even just the being like, oh, did you know that Claire Jones is running for Gino Bolso's seat? Like, there are names that we all know of bad actors currently in the Tennessee General Assembly that I think it's really hard to get that information out. But when you have a coalition, like a Middle Tennessee coalition, then I can say, oh, did you know this lady's running in Montgomery County? Oh, this lady's running in Williamson. This lady's, and it's just, I think that there's a lot of value in that, just because of where women sit in Tennessee. We have more activation energy, I think, that's required to get over that barrier and to really make an equitable government and society. So yeah, I think that that's even just sheer amplification of rural women, because the problem is like, my health, I mean, I can throw a stone out my window and hit a hospital.
Right.
It's not the same in rural Tennessee. And like, we see that in statistics, we see that in maternal mortality, specifically in Tennessee. Black maternal mortality is like 4 times higher than the national average. And it's like, we need women to speak to those issues in rural areas, because they're the ones being the most effective. And that's how you build power.
Exactly.
You build power by those affected being in positions of the power and being like empowered enough to act upon that.
And Jennifer, to your point, even before they get to be in power and elected, they need to understand their power of the vote and their power of advocacy, right? So you may not like what Senator John is doing at the state legislature, specifically around reproductive health care for women. And then, so what are you going to do about it? Are you just going to sit back and let that be okay? No, you need to go up there. You need to be able to advocate. You need to write them. You need to get on their nerves, because it's more than 70% of women, and they're not all Democratic women, they're Republican women too, who believe women should have a choice in what happens with their bodies in Tennessee. Then we need to activate them, right?
Yep. And that's one thing I like. Allie Phillips is running for House District 75, which is in Montgomery County, which is in Clarksville, Tennessee. And like, I feel like her story is just like a perfect, like, was directly affected by Tennessee's abortion ban. Like, she had to leave the state without any support network. Her husband had to stay home and help take care of their other child. She had to go have this procedure in another state that she had never even been to. And then she came back and essentially went to her legislator and said, this happened to me. Like, this can't happen to anyone else. And then he knew nothing about women's reproductive. Like, he said something like, I didn't know women could have miscarriages on their second pregnancy. Like, just something real ignorant.
Ignorant.
Just ignorant. And, but like, what impresses me the most is like, with these ladies that are running this cycle, is they are taking their pain and turning it into purpose. And I think that, like, I heard someone say turning pain into purpose recently. And it's like, when I have thought about all of these women running, I'm like, it would be easy to, like, when you have 20% women in your General Assembly, it would be easy to say, this is too hard of a battle. These women are not saying that. These women
at
are like,
all.
not anymore. We're done. We're done with this. And, we've got Shondell is running in House District 61, I think. That's a Davidson County district. And her son was killed at Waffle House, and we have had a huge movement around gun violence in Tennessee. And these folks just ain't listening
At all.
at all. And so these women are like, not anymore.
So Jennifer, I can tell you when I was in Nashville. It was coming back from Nashville when the shooting at the Covenant School took place. Then I had to go back up to Nashville. There were probably about 50 of us being honored by the Senate. Senator London Lamar, Senator Sarah Kyles, and some others honored us. And I think out of our caucus, it probably was about 10 people from the Tennessee Caucus who was being honored that day. But that was the day that those parents, those women were in that hallway talking to the House members. And it was a beautiful sight, to see them advocating for something to be done about gun violence in the state of Tennessee. It was beautiful. I had my camera going, Jennifer, and I was saying, keep fighting, keep fighting. It was a beautiful sight.
I was there
seen anything like it. You were there.
I was there that day. And it was it was almost like a religious moment.
Yes.
Because just as someone that's been engaged in advocacy, just made that new word up, engaged in activism, and just seeing that many people in that many Tennesseans in the same room, just saying, we're not doing this anymore. We have to change things. And they're still there. These women are, and honestly, it's mostly women that are showing up to all these committee meetings. These bad bills are still getting passed through committee. It's the same thing, but now people see it. Yes. We're exposing it for what it is. And I think that we're going to see a difference in November because lots more people have seen, honestly, a failure of leadership. I don't know how else to describe anything else other than that in the Tennessee General Assembly, when you have experts testifying that school for vouchers, for instance, saying that this redistribution of funds is not going to help our kids.
And it's not okay.
And the Tennessee Department of Education is saying it. People, government institutions are saying these things to the legislators' face. And they are just ignoring it.
Right.
And we can't work that way. You have to have people educated in what they're passing legislation on. And we just don't really have that.
Well, even having the discussion about not accepting funds from the federal government for education, who does that? Right? Who does that? Anyway.
Especially when how much of our budget's from the federal government.
Exactly. So, just keep up, National Women's Political Caucus Tennessee, keep up the good fight. Whatever your national organization can do to support, we are here for it. I just want to update, this is our first Candid Conversations. I'm so loving this conversation with you, Jennifer. Want to update folk on a few things that we've got going on at the national level. Really excited about our political action committee advancing endorsements at the national level. Our goal is to work with our PPAC to raise funds to support these candidates that we endorse. That's a big, big push for us at the national level. We're asking our members to volunteer in these campaigns too, because the only way these women are going to get elected to go to Congress and push back some of this nonsense is if we support them financially and if we support them with our volunteerism, knocking on these doors, making these phone calls. We are also, and I'm excited about the fact that one of our NWPC members, Congresswoman Jennifer McClellan, we met her in Virginia at our convention. She has a piece of legislation that our national organization is supporting around sexual harassment through explicit photographs being transferred with unsolicitedly through the internet or through electronic devices, your phones. So we're coming on board as a big supporter of that and asking our caucuses to let their elected officials know that we want them to support it. So, because it has an effect on women and it has an effect on families. And so, and it just shouldn't happen. So what I've been doing as the national president is reaching out to our Republican state elected officials. I've asked Congressman Kustoff, I've asked Senator Haggerty to look at this piece of legislation and see if they would come on as co-sponsors, because I would think as men, they would not want this type of behavior to exist. And so we're looking at that as well. Our National Women's Political Caucus Foundation, Jennifer, you mentioned that they've been kind enough to give our caucuses grants. That grant cycle is opening up now. The VP for grants this term is Dr. Carmen Shea. And so Carmen's sending out that information to the caucuses across the country. So we are excited about that. So as we wrap up, Doc, last question for you. If somebody wants to get involved in the National Women's Political Caucus for Tennessee, what do they need to do?
Go to our website, NWPC-TN.org. You can learn more about us, about who serves on the board, and you can join us there. And we would love, because again, we have 12 women that have applied for endorsement, and it's March.
Right.
This political landscape in Tennessee is something I've never seen before. Like, in terms of this many women coming out and coming out this strong, I think it really demonstrates that this cycle is going to be different.
Yes.
And I think you're exactly right. Like, it's not, we want to help them fundraise. That's super important, but volunteers. And so the more we grow our coalition across the state, the more we can amplify our own networks and amplify our networks to support these women. And so go to our website, join us, and we're going to do some good work this cycle. I feel really good about it.
This caucus is open to women and men. I mean, we can't endorse you, men, but you can be a member and help us in this good fight, right? And Jennifer, if somebody wants to be involved in the Women's Day on the Hill, because I'm telling you, there's a lot to learn from participating, even like going to meet with our state senators, our state, reps. All of that is planned out and it's just magnificent. What does somebody need to do to participate?
So we have a website for that too, womensdaytn.com, and you can register there. I guess go to the website, and we'll be putting our speakers up, what kind of panels we're having, and you can go and register there. And it's a free event. So because that's a big deal. We have the more and more I've engaged in the political spaces, I've realized how much money plays a role in that.
Yes.
And that, unfortunately, I think kind of skews who is able to participate. And so that was my number one goal when we designed it, was to provide childcare and for it to be free, because it's just, you need that exposure, and to have to pay for that exposure, I think really just makes it more difficult, makes less women be able to participate. And so, yeah.
Well, and there may be some businesses out there that want to sponsor this. Mm-hmm. So, because it's a free event, I know that you're open to like-minded people if they want to donate or sponsor this Day on the Hill. I know you're open to that, right?
Absolutely.
Good. Well, Dr. Jennifer Watson is the president of the National Women's Political Caucus of Tennessee. She is doing great work elevating what we are trying to do to recruit, train, and elect pro-choice women to office. And so if you are not a member of the National Women's Political Caucus of Tennessee, we invite you to join. If you are watching anywhere across the country and want to be a member of this great organization, go to NWPC.org and join us. And if you don't have a caucus in your city or in your county, we welcome you to start one and help us in this fight to make sure that women continue to have the rights that we deserve in this country. Again, Dr. Watson, thank you so much for being on the very first Candid Conversations for the National Women's Political Caucus. Continue to do the great work.
Well, you too. And thank you for having me. I appreciate you. And I appreciate all the work that the National Women's Political Caucus is doing.
All right, be safe. Now, remember, follow us on all of our social media platforms, and you'll be hearing more about our Candid Conversations in the future. Take care.